Hellraiser is a name known by many horror fans. Horror fan or not, you'll at least recognize its iconic character Pinhead. It was undeniably a little bit of a phenomenon for a bit. As previously discussed, it is a series with quite a lot of films, 11 in total. The first two movies garnered a reputation. They were bleak looks at horror with absolutely no comedic through line, which captivated a lot of people. As I discussed in the previous video, Hellraiser and Hellbound are both movies that you can watch back to back as one giant epic, and I think it works very well. It is no surprise that it launched the franchise it did. It is just a shame that the franchise it did sucks. After 4 films released theatrically, the series would become a straight-to-DVD horror series that you would find at every video store. I miss video stores. Feeling unfulfilled from my last video, I decided to watch the remaining movies, which, you know, led me to a new opinion. I think next to Halloween, Hellraiser is probably my least favorite horror franchise. I don't know, man, there was just a whole lot of shit. A lot of the later movies started off as unrelated movies beforehand, which really does show. The few movies that were written as Hellraiser movies, I don't believe them. Hellraiser IV Bloodline released in 1996, and it was the last film released theatrically in this series. First things first, I want to mention that this film was directed by Alan Smithee, a pseudonym used for a director when they want to remove their name from a project, which, you know, is always a great sign for movies. Though I previously referred to this as the Pinhead in Space movie, that is accurate. This movie does jump around timelines quite often. Due to this timeline jumping, it really makes the movie's pacing abhorrent. This movie uses the future as a framing device, in which Dr. Paul Merchant describes us the backstory of the box and his bloodline and how it all connects to him. Using this framing device is not communicated very well. Also, if the movie started in the olden ages with no indication of heading to space, that would have been very silly. I don't think there's any way around the concept of Pinhead being in space just being a little bit silly. And yeah, this movie's tone is all over the place. While acting is never a strong point of the Hellraiser series, I think that this is the first movie where it really starts to get awful. Even if it has fucking Adam Scott? The heaviest amount of lifting in this movie comes from Bruce Ramsey. I'm not gonna say his acting was good by any means, but he did a good job differentiating the 3 characters he had to play. So kudos to him. Compared to the more insane Pinhead that we were treated to in Hellraiser 3, Bloodline returns to a more subdued Pinhead that I honestly dislike a lot. Doug Bradley does it all, but this Pinhead just babbles and does shit like this. I think the effects are all around good in this film, including the CGI. Yeah, it's obviously 90s CG, but who cares? A dude gets decapitated after something shoots straight through his throat. That's pretty cool, though. And speaking of that moment, that was probably my favorite moment in the entire film, not just from a visual standpoint, but also from a story standpoint. He was a main character. In line with the effects being good, the makeup also looks great. I'm a massive fan of Angelique's Cenobite design, even if the movie makes zero introduction for it. I like the twin Cenobite, they look cool. Chatterer Beast is pretty sick. I also did not know where to put this in my script, but there is a character named Rimmer. Rimmer?
Oh my.
But it's a movie, and as a movie it doesn't work. A lot of scenes just don't go together well. Some scenes just end because they can. It's also pretty incoherent at points. I'm giving Hellraiser Bloodline a 3 out of 10. Now, before I move on to Hellraiser and Inferno, there is something I want to highlight about Bloodline. Pinhead was in the movie, with plenty of screen time. Say goodbye to that. Hellraiser Inferno was released in 2000, straight to video. The movie is a basic detective movie with a psychological twist, which are my least favorite. Though surprisingly, I didn't hate this one as much. For one, I was surprised to learn that Scott Derrickson directed this movie, the director of Doctor Strange and Sinister, which is in my opinion one of the best modern horror movies. What little he had here, he did a decent job, I guess. Really quickly, I do gotta say that this movie's effects aren't all that bad. A few sequences even got me to feel squeamish. Sex. That's about it. This is a really annoyingly edited movie. This movie, for some reason, had a bunch of color correction on it, and it looked like shit. Didn't help that the cinematography was also very bad, coupled with the poor editing and the basic story. By the way, Pinhead is on the poster. He is in the movie for 2 minutes. Much like Deader, it's just really unspecial. It's faded from my memory. 3 out of 10. Eat your crust! Up next was Hellseeker, which going into it I was actually vaguely excited for because Kirsty's back, played by Ashley Lawrence again too. That was enough to get me hooked on right off the bat. No! Get her out of. A lot like Inferno, Hellseeker is just a really boring detective movie. This one was written as a different movie and it absolutely shows. The editing is shit again and the pacing is also very bad. Doesn't help that the lead character is just forgettable as hell. I don't even know his name. He lives in my memory as a dirty little snack boy.
You're just a dirty little snack boy, aren't you?
So little notes during this movie that I had so little to write about it. Unlike Hellraiser Deader, however, I do remember laughing at this one a lot more. There were stock sound effects left and right.
No! My teeth!
One of which plucked right from iMovie. At the end of the movie, it shows that Kirsty survived the car crash the whole time because she made a deal with the Cenobites, but this ending also implies that Kirsty murdered a whole bunch of people, which... no. I'm just gonna be honest with you, she died right away and I just stopped paying attention. Even though the twist of her being alive was cool initially, I realized that it's kind of a character assassination. This one's stinky. 2 out of 10. After Hellseeker, director Rick Boda would also direct Deader and Hellworld. Both I also covered, and both are really bad. Hellraiser just kind of sat there for a long time. So long so that Dimension was about to lose the rights to Hellraiser. So they rushed a sequel into production. And that sequel is Hellraiser Revelations, which was a field day to watch. And simultaneously the worst movie I have ever seen. Right off the bat, it is one of the worst shot movies I've ever seen. The editing is all over the place, and the framing just cannot make up its mind. And the acting is so bad. It starts in like really shaky, annoying handheld. Nothing's communicated well, and when Pinhead shows up, he looks like a goober. The audio mixing changes constantly throughout the movie. Hey, it's like my videos. And it just overall looks so cheap. There was a point where they were faking nighttime by putting a blue filter over it, and it was incredible. Also, starting from this movie onwards, I was reading the trivia on the IMDb page, which was a lot of fun. Very noticeably, this is the first Hellraiser movie to not have Doug Bradley. He was approached for the role, but was told that there would not be a second draft of the script. Something he didn't feel strongly either way about, just something he felt unfinished. This was the first Hellraiser movie since Hellseeker written as a Hellraiser movie too. And the dumbasses who did the ad copies for the DVD and Blu-ray releases hailed the film as coming from the mind of Clive Barker, who has had no involvement with this series since the 4th movie. Which Clive took to Twitter. Hello my friends, I want to put on record that the flick out there using the word Hellraiser is no fucking child of mine. I have nothing to do with the fucking thing. If they claim it's from the mind of Clive Barker, it's a lie. It's not even from my butthole. To this movie's credit, it's funny. Actually, just really unconvincing.
Somehow even the sex looks funny.
With unneeded incest. Okay. A dumbass named Steven, who I hate. Pinhead is played by Stephen Smith Collins, who is not good. And his voice is from Fred Todd Esquire? Huh. Cool. This movie baffled me. I legit could not give it a rating, so 0 out of 10, I guess? Last and probably least was Hellraiser Judgement. Hellraiser Judgement feels like a fan film in the worst way. It is horribly shot, awfully framed. I know I've dogged on the acting for every single movie, but this is seriously where the series is at its absolute worst. Makes the whole thing unwatchable and ultimately very unsatisfying. Characters are not a strong point in this series, and this movie is no different. This movie introduces a new Cenobite called the Auditor, who was originally going to be a fucking reimagined Pinhead. Anyways, he's not good. It's very annoying. There's also a man who ate paper. My friend Josh really liked that man. Judgment is a boring detective movie. Surprise, surprise, it does nothing special and there's really not much of a story going on here. I want to mention that Heather Langenkamp is in this movie. She's given like top billing too. She is in the movie for 45 seconds and is pretty much unrecognizable. I know it was so boring. Thankfully, there were still moments that were funny to watch. God, does it end?
Human now?
Yeah. I was so happy when this one ended. Pinhead kills an angel and then gets transported to the real world back as a human. Paul T. Taylor plays Pinhead this time around, and he's not as bad as the previous, but he ain't Doug Bradley. Apparently he had a lot of fun playing it, so, you know, respect to him. Into the trash it goes, a 0 out of 10. Thankfully, Judgment was followed by the 2022 reboot, which I have previously covered. It is a very good movie. With that movie's strengths, I am interested to see what else they could do with this series, though, given the rest of it, I don't exactly see it as a priority for me. My God, I'm tired of being negative. We're doing something nice next time. Fuck it, we're talking about Scream.